Welcome to Paranormal Files. I'm your host, Zoe Parker, and in today's episode, we follow the flickering trail of mysterious lights in the sky, glowing orbs that appear without warning, vanish without explanation, and defy the laws of physics. Seen above ancient ruins, lonely deserts, and quiet towns, they've sparked awe, fear, and speculation for centuries. Are they messages from beyond, spirits of the dead, or warnings left by civilizations long forgotten? The truth may be darker than we imagine. In the quiet central valley of Hessdalen, Norway, the landscape is shaped by dense forests, steep mountainsides, and a river that winds like a silver thread through the land. The area is remote, home to just a few hundred residents scattered across the narrow glacial corridor. It's the kind of place where the sky feels closer than the ground, where silence settles deep and the night falls heavy. For centuries, this isolation kept Hessdalen largely hidden from the world until the lights arrived. Though the modern wave of interest began in the early 1980s, reports of strange lights in the sky over Hessdalen stretch back generations. Old diaries, passed down stories, and whispers among farmers all hinted at a recurring mystery. Floating lights that hovered over the treetops, followed horses and carts, or appeared above the mountain ridge only to vanish when approached. They were dismissed as local superstition, hallucinations brought on by long winters or the eerie quiet of the valley. It wasn't the only region with such tales. In the United States, Marfa, Texas, tells a similar story. Along Route 67, just east of the Chinati Mountains, glowing spheres have been spotted since the 19th century. Ranchers and travelers first reported them in the 1880s. Lights that danced on the horizon, flickered like lanterns, then split and reformed in the desert night. The Apache believed the lights were fallen stars, spirits watching over the land. Cowboys thought they were omens, and early settlers feared they were warnings. And then there's the brown mountain lights in North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, documented in Cherokee folklore long before European settlers arrived. According to tribal legends, the lights were the souls of women searching for lost warriors. Later, during the Civil War, stories claimed the lights were spirits of soldiers who died in unmarked mountain skirmishes. By the early 20th century, the lights had become a national curiosity, drawing tourists, researchers, and spiritualists to the area in droves. In the Andes, the Nazca people may have witnessed their own lights. Petroglyphs and line formations, some stretching for miles, appear designed to be seen from the sky. Some ancient astronaut theorists argue that lights observed by shamans were actually technological, either alien or inherited from an older, forgotten world. In Australia, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories speak of min lights, glowing orbs that follow travelers across the outback, often leading them astray or vanishing when approached. These stories are ancient, passed down for thousands of years, and treated not as metaphor, but truth. Across cultures and time periods, the pattern repeats: remote landscapes, strange glowing phenomena, and legends that warn or wonder about their origin. From the mountains of Japan, where fireballs were called hitodama and believed to be human souls, to rural England, where will-o'-the-wisps lured travelers into bogs, mysterious lights have haunted the dark places of the earth for longer than we've had names for them. But only in recent history have these tales taken on a more technological twist. With the rise of aviation and radar in the 20th century, unexplained lights stopped being dismissed as folklore and began to raise far more serious questions. What if these weren't illusions or spirits, but intelligent, maneuvering craft? What if they weren't just glimpses of the supernatural, but indicators of something beyond our planet, or something buried deep within it? The mystery deepened not because the lights disappeared, but because they kept coming, appearing in war zones, above nuclear sites, near sacred mountains and forgotten ruins. The phenomenon wasn't just global, it was persistent. And what once lived in stories and songs began to make headlines, raise alarms, and draw the gaze of scientists, soldiers, and governments alike. The skies were no longer silent. They were speaking, glowing, watching, and no one could agree on what they were saying. In the winter of 1981, Hessdalen became the center of global curiosity when the lights began appearing with such frequency that locals could no longer write them off as imagination. What had once been fleeting flickers turned into nightly spectacles. Residents started keeping journals, noting dates, times, and descriptions of what they saw. Farmers stopped working after dark. School teachers began shortening lessons, and a quiet unease settled over the valley. One of the earliest detailed accounts came from a man named Leif Hevik, a retired engineer who lived just north of the river. On December 15th, around 9:45 p.m., Hevik was in his barn when a bright, egg-shaped object appeared above the ridgeline. He described it as glowing orange and completely silent. It hovered for nearly 2 minutes, then shot straight up and vanished. That night, 5 other neighbors reported similar lights, all within a 15-minute window. There was no storm, no aircraft, no logical reason for what they had seen. By January, word had spread. Journalists and amateur photographers poured into Hessdalen, hoping to catch the phenomenon for themselves. They didn't have to wait long. On January 25th, 2 German tourists camping in the woods captured a flickering white orb on an 8mm film reel. The light appeared stationary for over a minute before shifting color and moving at a sharp right angle, something aircraft, drones, or satellites couldn't mimic at the time. The footage, though grainy, sparked a wave of international attention. Then came the sighting that no one could explain away. On February 2nd, 1982, a group of school children on a field trip witnessed a pulsating blue light descend from the clouds and hover just above the frozen lake at the valley's center. Teachers scrambled to photograph the event. One captured a frame just as the light dimmed and shot horizontally across the water, leaving behind a strange circle of melted ice in its wake. Scientists later visited the site and confirmed the melted area was real, but could not explain how it had occurred. There were no footprints, no signs of heat damage to nearby vegetation, and the weather had been well below freezing. Far from Norway, in the Texas town of Marfa, similar reports had been surfacing since the 19th century. But in the early 1980s, they became more frequent. Rancher Ed Renshaw recounted a chilling encounter in 1983 when 2 glowing red orbs paced his truck for over 2 miles, maintaining speed and height without making a sound. He stopped the vehicle, stepped out, and watched in disbelief as the orbs hovered just beyond reach. Then, with a flicker, they blinked out. His cattle were restless for days afterward. On the other side of the globe, a 1978 incident in New Zealand remains one of the most dramatic. Pilots of a freight aircraft flying near Kaikoura reported being followed by a cluster of intensely bright lights, confirmed by radar and seen by ground control. The lights moved in erratic patterns and stayed with the aircraft for over an hour. Despite being tracked on multiple instruments and visually confirmed by multiple witnesses, the origin of the lights was never identified. The footage, captured by a television news crew on board, was broadcast around the world. Not all sightings were harmless. In Brazil's Colares region in 1977, dozens of locals claimed they were burned or injured by beams of light that descended from glowing objects in the night sky. Villagers spoke of paralysis, puncture wounds, and intense heat. Fear spread rapidly. The Brazilian Air Force launched an official investigation, codenamed Operation Saucer, and took hundreds of photographs, sketches, and testimonies. Many of the details remain classified to this day. What is known is that the lights weren't just being seen. They were interacting. The early sightings established a pattern, unpredictable, unexplained, and eerily consistent across cultures and continents. Bright orbs or structured lights appearing in remote places, witnessed by groups, and defying known technology. Whether they caused fear, awe, or injury, one thing was becoming clear. They were real enough for governments to take notice. And they weren't going away. By 1983, the frequency and intensity of the Hessdalen sightings had grown too significant to ignore. Scientists, engineers, and military observers began to arrive in the valley, each hoping to capture definitive proof of the phenomenon. The Norwegian Defense Research Establishment quietly sent operatives to observe, but it was a group of civilian scientists from Østfold University who took the first real steps towards systematic investigation. They called it Project Hessdalen. Over several winters, researchers set up a temporary observation station on a hill overlooking the valley. Using time-lapse cameras, radar systems, magnetometers, and Geiger counters, they tried to capture not only the lights themselves, but any environmental changes they might produce. The results were astonishing. Between January and February of 1984 alone, over 50 unexplained lights were documented, many with supporting radar data. Some moved slowly, hovering just above the ground. Others zipped across the valley at high speeds, changing direction in ways that defied known aircraft capabilities. One particular incident stood out. On February 11th, a bright, metallic-looking object was seen floating silently over the mountainside for nearly 2 minutes before it accelerated vertically and disappeared. Multiple cameras caught it from different angles. Radar confirmed the presence of a solid object. No conventional aircraft were in the area. Military officials, though not publicly involved, were said to have reviewed the footage and left without comment. The instrumentation also detected something stranger: bursts of ionizing radiation coinciding with the appearance of the lights. Magnetometers showed fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field during some sightings, and infrared sensors picked up heat signatures inconsistent with natural sources. But no consistent pattern emerged. For every piece of evidence captured, the phenomenon seemed to find a new way to elude explanation. Thousands of miles away, similar attempts were being made in the U.S. In Marfa, Texas, the University of Texas at Dallas conducted a series of studies between 2003 and 2008, installing sensors and cameras near the area of most frequent sightings. They recorded dozens of light events, some of which they attributed to headlights or distant car beams, but not all. Several lights exhibited behaviors inconsistent with known sources, including sudden vertical movement and pulsing changes in brightness. The researchers were cautious in their conclusions, but they left open the possibility that unknown atmospheric or electromagnetic conditions could be involved. Meanwhile, the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina prompted attention from the U.S. Geological Survey as far back as 1922. Scientists placed observation equipment along the Linville Gorge to monitor atmospheric conditions, searching for a correlation between weather patterns and the lights. Their conclusion? While some lights could be explained by natural causes like refraction or swamp gas, many remained unaccounted for. Perhaps the most compelling and secretive investigation came from Brazil. Operation Saucer, launched in response to the disturbing 1977 Colares incidents, involved a team of 30 Air Force officers led by Captain Wirangé Holanda. They gathered over 500 photographs, dozens of video recordings, and hundreds of witness statements. Some reports described encounters with objects that emitted focused beams of light, causing temporary paralysis or burns. A few witnesses claimed the beams left small puncture wounds and intense feelings of fatigue. When the operation ended in 1978, all data was classified. Years later, in a shocking twist, Captain Hollanda granted an interview confirming the authenticity of the events, only to die under mysterious circumstances weeks later in what was ruled a suicide. Despite numerous investigations across decades and continents, no official explanation has fully accounted for the phenomenon. Skeptics argue that all sightings can be chalked up to misidentified man-made objects, weather anomalies, or hallucinations. But the sheer volume of documented cases, many verified with radar, video, and physical evidence, makes such explanations feel increasingly inadequate. The more attention the lights received, the more elusive and intelligent they seemed. Whatever they were, they appeared to be watching and choosing carefully when, where, and how to show themselves. Explanations for the mysterious lights have ranged from the rational to the extraordinary, each attempting to pin down what remains stubbornly unclassifiable. On one end of the spectrum, scientists have proposed a variety of natural causes. Some argue that certain lights, like those seen in Hessdalen, might be the result of piezoelectricity, a phenomenon where intense geological stress in the Earth's crust produces electrical discharges. Hessdalen sits atop rock formations rich in quartz, a crystal known to generate small electrical charges under pressure. Combined with metallic minerals and underground water movement, some researchers believe this could create localized plasma balls, essentially floating orbs of energy. Others point to atmospheric explanations. Swamp gas, light refraction, and temperature inversions can bend light or create illusions, making distant sources appear strange or airborne. This theory has been applied frequently to explain the Marfa lights, suggesting that headlights from distant highways are distorted by thermal layers in the desert air. Yet these arguments falter when applied to sightings that predate automobiles or involve close encounters, rapid maneuvers, or physical effects on the environment. Then there's ball lightning, a rare, still poorly understood atmospheric phenomenon where glowing orbs of electricity appear during storms. While some cases may align with this behavior, most reports of mysterious lights occur in clear skies, far from any electrical storms. The Hessdalen lights, for example, have been observed during calm, dry winter nights. Ball lightning also rarely persists more than a few seconds, whereas many of these sightings last several minutes. As scientific theories strain against the details, paranormal explanations begin to enter the conversation. In many indigenous traditions, glowing lights in nature are not natural at all, but spirits of the dead, watchers, or omens. The Min Min lights of Australia are said to follow lone travelers, never attacking, but leading them astray into desolation or danger. In Appalachia, will-o'-the-wisps were believed to be souls trapped between worlds. These ideas aren't seen as myths by those who tell them, but as warnings based on lived experience. Some spiritualists believe the lights are conscious entities, non-human intelligences that inhabit energy fields, able to manifest only under certain environmental conditions. These beings, they claim, aren't bound by physical form and interact with humans as messages or lessons. The notion of light beings has found traction in New Age communities, where the phenomenon is interpreted as a sign of awakening or interdimensional contact. Then come the theories of ancient technology. Certain fringe archaeologists suggest that ancient structures like Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines, or Egypt's pyramids were designed as energy beacons, activated by cosmic alignments. In this view, the mysterious lights are not visitors, but remnants of a forgotten science, beams or signals still functioning after thousands of years, programmed to respond to atmospheric or magnetic shifts. Ufologists, of course, argue that the lights are advanced aerial craft, piloted or unmanned, and not of earthly origin. They cite the light's ability to change direction instantly, their silence, their emission of radiation, and their seeming curiosity toward human settlements. Some claim the lights are reconnaissance drones from extraterrestrial civilizations. Others believe they are manifestations from parallel dimensions, tiers in space-time allowing brief glimpses into other realities. Each theory seems to grasp at part of the truth, yet none explain it all. The lights have no consistent shape, pattern, or behavior. They appear in deserts, forests, mountains, and oceans. They appear to individuals and crowds. They are sometimes playful, sometimes terrifying. If they are technology, it is far beyond our own. If they are natural, then nature is more mysterious than we've ever known. If they are spiritual, then they speak a language we've forgotten how to understand. The mystery hasn't faded with time. It has evolved. In the era of smartphones, dash cams, and 24-hour surveillance, sightings of unexplained aerial lights have become more frequent, not less. What used to be grainy photographs or secondhand tales are now high-definition videos, live-streamed events, and social media firestorms. Hessdalen, once an isolated valley of a few hundred, now hosts an automated observatory that continues to detect anomalous light activity. The phenomenon hasn't stopped. It's become more sophisticated, more visible, and perhaps more intentional. In 2007, the Hessdalen Automatic Measurement Station captured a series of lights on its all-sky camera that baffled researchers. One video showed a glowing object hovering above the mountain ridge, pulsing slowly before accelerating vertically out of frame. The incident, logged with magnetic field disturbances and thermal anomalies, reignited interest in the valley. Still, no official conclusion was drawn. The data was compelling, but the cause remained elusive. In the United States, 2020 marked a turning point in public acknowledgement. Leaked videos released by the New York Times showed U.S. Navy pilots encountering unidentified aerial phenomena, craft that moved in ways that defied physics, with no visible propulsion, no wings, and speeds beyond anything in the American arsenal. These objects, caught on infrared and radar, behaved eerily similar to the lights seen in rural valleys and mountain passes. For the first time, the U.S. government confirmed the authenticity of the footage and admitted it had been running a secret program to investigate these phenomena for years. Across the internet, new hotspots continue to emerge. In Yakutia, Russia, hunters and nomads have reported glowing lights hovering over frozen tundras, sometimes trailing silently above snowmobiles or circling remote camps. In the Atacama Desert of Chile, astrophotographers have captured strange moving lights above ancient geoglyphs, lights that don't correspond to known aircraft paths or satellite orbits. Footage is dissected frame by frame on forums and YouTube channels, igniting debates that spiral into the thousands of comments. The cultural impact is immense. On TikTok, hashtags like UFO sighting and sky phenomenon rack up hundreds of millions of views. Teens share stories of orbs hovering outside bedroom windows. Drone enthusiasts catch glowing anomalies in the distance that refuse to show up on radar. Podcasts, documentaries, and YouTube miniseries dissect every second of video, every testimony, every glimmer in the night sky. Yet with all the visibility, the lights remain just out of reach. In 2022, a series of sightings in Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains sparked local news coverage after entire villages claimed to see brilliant lights dancing above the cliffs. A local priest even filmed one with his phone, an amber sphere that hung motionless for nearly 10 minutes. The footage spread across Latin America before being dismissed by officials as a drone display, despite there being no event scheduled, no launch log filed, and no sound detected by witnesses. Meanwhile, in Japan, the city of Fukui experienced a weeks-long wave of sightings in late 2023. Commuters filmed strange lights above the railway station, appearing nightly at the same hour, always for under a minute. Spectrometric analysis of the footage by amateur researchers revealed emissions outside the visible light spectrum, radiation closer to ultraviolet than typical LED sources. The lights vanished as suddenly as they began. More recently, the U.S. military's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office has admitted it is receiving dozens of new reports every month. Most are dismissed as balloons, drones, or atmospheric clutter. But a small percentage remain unexplained. Objects with intelligent movement, no propulsion system, and behaviors far beyond current human capability. Despite technological advancements and expanded surveillance, the lights have not become clearer. Instead, they seem to adjust, staying just ahead of our ability to understand or capture them, like a secret keeping itself hidden, revealing only what it chooses, when it chooses, always watching, always just beyond reach. For those living in the shadows of these phenomena, the lights are more than a curiosity. They're a source of psychological unease, spiritual reflection, and cultural transformation. In Hessdalen, the lights have become part of the valley's identity. Locals speak of them with a mix of reverence and exhaustion. Some treat them as a kind of sacred phenomenon, while others wish the attention and the fear would simply go away. Farmers have reported sleepless nights, animals spooked without cause, and an uncanny silence that sometimes falls over the valley just before an appearance. Children raised in the area learn to scan the sky instinctively, even if they don't know why. In Marfa, the lights have evolved into a cultural symbol. What once unnerved early settlers is now celebrated with an annual festival. The mystery has been commodified. Souvenir shops sell glowing trinkets, and visitors come from around the world hoping to glimpse the unknown. Yet beneath the tourism, there's still an undercurrent of awe. Locals who have lived in the region their whole lives often stop short of calling the lights harmless. They speak carefully, with a knowing look, of nights where the desert feels too quiet, too charged. In places like Colares, Brazil, where encounters were reportedly harmful, the psychological scars remain fresh decades later. Survivors of the 1977 incidents still recall the sensation of being frozen by unseen forces, of waking up with burns or marks they couldn't explain. Some refuse to go out after dark to this day. Others speak of dreams, repetitive, intrusive, and unshakably vivid. The community there didn't just observe the lights. They felt hunted by them. Anthropologists studying these communities have noted how the lights influence behavior, traditions, and belief systems. In some areas, sightings lead to renewed interest in local folklore or spiritual practices. In others, they breed fear and suspicion, turning neighbor against neighbor in whispered accusations of hidden knowledge or cursed land. The lights destabilize the ordinary. They blur the line between legend and life, forcing people to confront the possibility that the world is far stranger than they were taught to believe. Psychologists have tried to understand why the lights provoke such intense emotional reactions. Part of it lies in the loss of control, seeing something so foreign, so inexplicable, that it breaks the brain's understanding of what is real. For some, this leads to obsession, the need to document, to decode, to explain. For others, it leads to denial or repression. It's not uncommon for witnesses to remain silent for years, even decades, unsure if what they saw was real or if anyone would believe them. Socially, the phenomenon can create rifts. In tight-knit towns, belief in the lights can mark someone as imaginative or unstable. In other cases, entire communities rally around the experience, creating new bonds through shared mystery. It becomes folklore in real time, shaping identities and collective memory. Online, the psychological effect has gone global. The internet has turned every smartphone user into a potential skywatcher. People share experiences not just to document, but to find solidarity in the unexplained. Virtual communities offer validation, but also amplify paranoia. For every account of a strange sighting, there's someone insisting it's a government experiment, a cosmic signal, or worse. The mystery metastasizes, evolving with each post, each comment, each video that goes viral. The lights don't just light up the sky, they cast long shadows on the human psyche. They challenge our trust in science, in institutions, in our own senses. They unsettle the comfort of certainty, reminding us that no matter how much we map and measure the world, there are still things that don't make sense. And maybe, deep down, we don't want them to. Across continents and centuries, the reports echo one another with unsettling precision. Lights that hover silently over forests, orbs that flicker above deserts with no heat source, glowing shapes that track aircraft, follow cars, paralyze livestock. From the snowy slopes of Hessdalen to the dust-choked plains of Kolaris, from ancient tales of fire spirits to digital-age infrared footage released by governments, the core elements remain: motion without propulsion, light without flame, presence without explanation. In Hessdalen, the lights have been measured, recorded, and cataloged. Researchers detected magnetic fluctuations and bursts of radiation that shouldn't exist in such quantities without a nearby source. Instruments caught sudden spikes in gamma radiation as lights passed overhead, but with no consistent pattern, no obvious origin. The phenomenon slipped away as easily as it revealed itself: visible, recordable, but never fully explainable. In Kolaris, those affected by the 1977 wave of encounters didn't just see the lights, they suffered from them. Dozens were treated for burns, puncture wounds, and neurological symptoms. The lights in that region behaved like predators, targeting individuals, shining beams into homes, following fishermen into open waters. Brazil's military investigation produced sketches, photographs, and witness interviews describing structured objects, some disc-shaped, others angular, all with glowing underbellies and silent maneuverability. Much of that evidence remains classified. What has emerged points to something more than natural phenomenon, something intelligent, or at least deliberate. In Marfa, the mystery persists despite decades of scientific attempts to debunk it. The lights appear where no roads exist, at altitudes too low for drones and too erratic for weather balloons. Spectral analysis has failed to identify a known chemical or energetic source. Pilots flying over the region have reported lights keeping pace with their aircraft, often veering away at impossible speeds before disappearing entirely. Similar patterns have been logged in the Kaikoura incident in New Zealand, where radar tracked objects pacing a commercial plane. In Brown Mountain, repeated sightings over the centuries maintain a consistent appearance: glowing orbs moving laterally across the gorge, often appearing in clusters, observed during both clear and stormy nights. No definitive correlation to atmospheric conditions has held. They appear when they choose, not when we expect. In the modern era, high-resolution cameras and sensors have only sharpened the outlines of the unknown. Lights recorded in military encounters often exhibit transmedium capabilities, moving through air and water with no visible disruption or propulsion. Some craft accelerate from stationary to thousands of miles per hour in under a second. No known technology can mimic such behavior without violating the laws of physics as we understand them. Even the most skeptical observers are left with gaps they cannot close. Not every sighting is a drone, a satellite, or a camera glitch. Some defy categorization entirely, leaving behind physical traces, radiation spikes, terrified animals, and most hauntingly, silence. No message, no contact, just the undeniable presence of something that watches from just beyond reach. Whether these lights are manifestations of nature's strangest properties, classified technology beyond public knowledge, spirits of a forgotten world, or visitors from another dimension, they remain consistent in one terrifying way. They never offer resolution. They present a question and vanish before we can answer. A flash in the sky, a chill in the air, a mystery we can touch only in its absence. The pattern, the presence, the persistence, it all adds up to a phenomenon that has no face, no voice, and no end. Only the lights remain. What if the lights aren't just a random phenomenon, but something with purpose? Not random sparks of geological pressure or misunderstood meteorological quirks, but deliberate signals, communications, warnings, or surveillance by forces we cannot yet comprehend. Suppose these glowing anomalies are not mistakes of nature, but part of a system far older than our recorded history, designed for reasons we were never meant to understand. What if Hessdalen isn't an isolated valley in Norway, but a node, one of many locations across the planet connected by unseen lines, forming a grid used not by humans, but by something else? Ancient maps and ley lines hint at such patterns, aligning sacred sites, monuments, and places long associated with supernatural events. Could these lights be markers or indicators of those lines activating, like power surging through forgotten cables beneath the surface of the Earth? Consider the hypothesis that the lights are not from above, but from below. A growing number of researchers suggest that some of these anomalies originate from deep within the Earth's crust, linked to subterranean caverns, magnetic hotspots, or seismic stress points. Could there be an intelligence beneath us? A form of consciousness, alien not in distance but in structure, slowly revealing itself through light, radiation, and strange behavior? Or perhaps the lights are time itself made visible, rips in the fabric of reality where timelines overlap, brief windows into parallel worlds. Witnesses often describe a sudden stillness before the lights appear, as if time holds its breath. Some report lost time, moments they cannot account for. And in rare cases, disorientation so severe it feels like waking from a dream. Are we glimpsing fragments of other dimensions bleeding into ours, marked by the strange glow of an existence not bound by our laws? The spiritual interpretations are no less compelling. Cultures across the globe agree on one thing: light has meaning. It is presence. The souls of the dead, angelic watchers, spirits bound to the land, each tradition sees glowing orbs not as machines, but as beings. If consciousness can exist beyond the body, might it find form in light? Intelligent, mobile, responsive? Could these lights be observers, guardians, or entities that have existed alongside us all along? Then there is the extraterrestrial possibility, the one that refuses to go away. The lights move with intelligence, respond to aircraft, hover over military bases and nuclear sites. If they are drones, they are impossibly advanced. If they are probes, they are silent and precise. Could they be mapping us, monitoring us, waiting for a threshold to be crossed before making themselves known? And what of the ancient beacons theory? What if certain lights are not visitors, but messages left behind? Technologies so old they predate civilization itself, still operating in places like Brown Mountain, the Nazca Plains, or the depths of the Amazon. Lights that flicker into view only when the conditions are right, revealing long-forgotten tools meant to signal, to warn, or perhaps to open something. Even the skeptics face a troubling what if. What if the phenomenon doesn't care whether we believe in it? What if it is wholly indifferent to us, yet continues to appear, observing from a vantage point we cannot perceive? That, perhaps, is the most unsettling possibility of all, that these lights are not part of our story, but we are somehow part of theirs. The lights do not ask questions. They do not speak. They appear, they move, they disappear. But in their silence, they demand interpretation. And in their glow, we are forced to confront the unknown, not just in the skies above, but within ourselves. What if they've been here all along, not waiting to be discovered, but watching us, waiting for us to understand what we're truly seeing? If the lights in the sky are anything, they are constant, not in their form, not in their pattern, but in their persistence. They have appeared above mountain peaks and deep forests, hovered over oceans, and blinked across frozen tundras. For every attempt to document them, they offer a countermove, showing up without a trace, or leaving behind evidence that only deepens the mystery. They do not conform to our expectations, our technology, or even our logic. They remain wild, elusive, and unmistakably real. We try to shape the unknown into something familiar, machines from distant worlds, spirits caught between realms, forgotten technologies sparked back to life. But maybe the truth is none of these. Maybe it's all of them. Or maybe the truth is a thing we're not yet evolved enough to grasp. The lights have no single narrative. They've haunted the ancients, baffled scientists, and drawn the curiosity of millions. Yet they offer no answers. Only questions that deepen with every encounter. And that is perhaps their most haunting quality, their silence. These aren't phenomena that announce themselves with messages or meanings. They are present, but not participatory. They move, but do not interact, not in a way we understand. They react, perhaps. Some lights flee when pursued. Some draw closer when watched, but no one can say with certainty that they intend anything at all. And still, the sightings continue. In the most isolated places where technology fades and darkness reigns, people still see them. An orb drifting silently above a tree line. A flash of light with no source. A strange glow on a distant hillside. For those who witness them, life is never quite the same. Not because of trauma, or fear, or revelation, but because they've seen something that shouldn't exist, and yet it does. Something just outside the reach of comprehension, floating at the edge of reality. The lights endure. As technology grows more powerful, so do they. As the world becomes more interconnected, their reach expands. They are embedded in folklore, studied in laboratories, tracked on radar, and still they remain unexplained. They resist categorization. They defy certainty. They offer no comfort, no threat, and no closure. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the lights aren't here to answer our questions, but to remind us that questions still exist. That mystery isn't something to be solved, but something to be lived with. A permanent feature of the human experience, glowing faintly just out of reach. In the end, all we know is this: the lights are real. They have been with us for as long as we've looked to the skies, and they will remain long after we've stopped asking why. They are the silent watchers, the flickering unknowns, the ever-returning enigmas of the night. Thanks for listening. This has been Paranormal Files. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.